Hi, I'm Eliot from Magoosh. In this video, we're going to think about IELTS Writing Task 1 for the General Training exam. And we're going to think about things that you should avoid. What are some of the mistakes that people make sometimes on this part of the test and how to avoid them? Okay, so we're going to start with the first thing, and that is that people come into this task sometimes without a clear understanding of how to organize their responses. These are letters, and they're always going to follow a very similar format, okay? Now, you're going to get different kinds of topics and different questions, but the format and the approach you can take, the organizational pattern you can use is largely going to be the same. You're going to have a prompt to respond to with a general topic, and then some bullet points, some little points within the question that you need to respond to in your letter. And the best and easiest strategy to use is to simply go through each bullet point and write a short line or short paragraph for each of those bullet points until you get to the last one and you can close out your letter in an appropriate way. Just make sure you follow this format. You just want to go from top to bottom with those bullet points, answer each one, and you're going to have a good logical organization to your response every time. Now, mistake number 2 is related to that point, and that is that sometimes people don't answer or don't respond to all of the bullet points in the question. That is a big mistake. You need to definitely make sure you answer each one, each part of the prompt if you're going to get a great score on your task 1 letter. So, answer the prompt fully. Don't make the mistake of focusing more attention on one bullet point over the other. You need to focus your attention on all of them. Make sure you answer each one fully and accurately, and that's going to be the way that you get the best score. Another mistake people make is to use an incorrect register or tone. What is that? Well, that's where you're responding in a way that doesn't really match the topic of the letter exactly, because maybe you are too informal or maybe you are too formal for the topic of the letter. Some task 1 letters are going to be supposed to be written to someone like your boss at work or maybe a city official in your town. Other letters are going to people in your family or your friends, things like that. Usually it's your friend. Well, you in your own language, you probably talk quite differently with your boss compared to your close friends. And that's what they're expecting to see in your letter for task 1. They want to see that you are aware of more informal language in these letters, or that you know what kind of language would be appropriate to write a letter to your boss or to someone in your city government, for example. So that's something you need to focus on as you're studying. And there are lots of resources. I'm going to suggest one later in this lesson to help you think about language that's appropriate for each type of letter. Another mistake people make in task 1, and this can happen in task 2 as well, is where people use or copy too much language from the prompt itself. Okay? Now, task 1 general training prompts are long. There's a lot of language in there. Those bullet points, there are going to be 3 of them and some follow-up information there. There's going to be a main topic presentation of your letter in that prompt. There's a lot of language there, and you need to try to do your best to not use the exact same language you see in the prompt. That's tough, okay? But just practice it. As you're going through your letters, try to find synonyms for words that are in the prompt, or try to say things a different way. Don't use the exact phrasing or the same kinds of sentences that you see in the prompt, okay? So this is something to work on as you're practicing for your task 1 letter, is to focus on whether or not you are reusing a lot of language from the prompt. If you are, that can bring down your score a little bit. If you can paraphrase successfully, though, that's going to be something that can really boost your score. Okay, the next thing that causes some people problems, a mistake people make, is to manage their time poorly for these general training letters. Okay, so what should you do? Well, you remember you only have 20 minutes for this task, right? That's not a lot of time to write one of these letters. So you really should not spend much time brainstorming and planning your letter. Fortunately, because the prompt gives you the bullet points you're supposed to respond to, you shouldn't have to do a lot of planning. You just need to think creatively about exactly what you're going to say in your letter, which can be challenging. But if you've got some imagination, you can imagine a scenario that you're writing your letter about and fill in the details you need for each of those bullet points. Okay, so as you're practicing these Task 1 letters, try to limit the amount of time you spend planning to, let's say, a minute, definitely no more than 2 minutes, so that you can have as much time as possible to write your letter, and then save a minute or so at the end to read over it one time, just to check for spelling or grammar mistakes, things like that, okay? So don't fall into the trap of mismanaging time. Make sure that you are spending most of your time writing your letter and as little time as possible planning it out and reviewing at the end. Even though it's important to do both of those things, you don't want to spend too much time on them. So to get more information about General Training Task 1 and other parts of the IELTS exam, we've got some great resources for you. If you look down in the description below, we've got two things. There is a full ebook that describes and provides strategies for General Training Task 1 and the General Training reading section, and really the rest of the exam there. So you can get all the information you need about strategy, about approaches, and just the basic knowledge about the test. We also have a vocabulary PDF for you down there, and that's going to provide some of the language we were talking about earlier in this video, where you need to write either in formal language or informal language in your letters. There's a lot of information in that vocabulary PDF that's going to give you the kind of language you need to respond to your General Training Task 1 prompts. And if you like this video, check out these videos as well. Up here on the left, there's lots more information for you about the IELTS exam, things you need to know to do really well on the test.